And we end today in South America, where Bolivia remains on edge with streets across the country witnessing violence. Supporters of former President Evo Morales have refused to back down. And what started as protests demanding Morales' candidacy for national elections in August, despite a constitutional disqualification, has snowballed into a wider revolt against President Luis Arce and the economic crisis. On Wednesday, at least 3 policemen were killed in clashes as protesters launched explosives in a Bolivian town. While the president and the former president remain engaged in a power battle, Bolivian cities burn, and it's the people that suffer the most. Here's the story with more.
City streets on fire. Highways blocked. Tear gas, explosions, and hundreds of protesters clashing with police in riot gear. Bolivia is on the edge. Supporters of former President Evo Morales launched nationwide protests demanding him to be qualified as a candidate for the next presidential elections in August, for which he is constitutionally disqualified. But now, these protests have turned violent and snowballed into a wider revolt against President Luis Arce and the economic crisis in Bolivia. In Llallagua, a mining town in Bolivia's southwest, at least 2 police officers were killed and several people were injured as violent clashes erupted. The government says the policemen were murdered by gunshots. At least 15 civilians and 2 police officers were injured in confrontations in the town the previous day.
In response to the recent violent events recorded in the municipality of Llallagua, as well as in other parts of our country that have left injured and deceased people and police officers, the public ministry has immediately initiated investigations and has deployed actions that allow the identification and criminal prosecution of the material and intellectual authors.
By Wednesday, there were at least 21 blockade points across roads and highways in the country. These were led by the supporters of Morales.
We have instructed the Bolivian police through our Minister of Government and our armed forces through our Minister of Defense to conduct an operation to unblock the Oruro-Cochabamba highway. This action is to address all demands and the clamorous request we see from the Bolivian people that these blockades are affecting their pockets and our population. All they intend is to reiterate an unconstitutional candidacy of Mr. Evo Morales. We regret that once again personal interests are affecting the life and economy of the Bolivian people.
In Cochabamba, which is Morales' political stronghold, clashes broke out after President Luis Arce ordered the clearing of the highways. Protesters used explosives, while the police responded with tear gas. Evo Morales was Bolivia's first indigenous president and is one of Latin America's longest-serving leaders. He led the country from 2006 to 2019. He resigned under pressure from the military after seeking to extend his 13-year-old grip on power and went into exile. Morales returned to the country a year later and backed Luis Arce, the current president. The two, however, soon turned rivals. Evo Morales still retains a large following in the South American country, particularly among the indigenous communities. Now, Morales wants to be back in power. But Bolivia's constitution upholds the 2-term limit for its leaders. He has managed to evade this rule previously, so he is trying his luck again. Last month, he attempted to register as a candidate but failed.
They have removed the prosecutors. Now the plan is to remove doctors and teachers, then leave us without electricity, without entel, without water. Luis Arce's government is acting like Donald Trump in Palestine. What is happening is very serious. I want the Bolivian people to know.
He has been holed up in his central stronghold in the Cochabamba department since October to avoid arrest on charges of trafficking a minor. The government says this is where he has been sowing chaos from and has put him under investigation for terrorism, inciting protests, and for trying to sabotage the election.
WhatsApp audio messages are making the rounds on social media, inciting violence and unrest in the hope of enabling someone who, by constitutional mandate and by order of the Constitutional Court, is disqualified from office. They say that without that person there will be no elections. I believe we are all interested in a democratic and peaceful transfer of power.
The years-long rivalry between Morales and Arce has crushed Bolivia's economy. High inflation, fuel, and food shortages are paralyzing the country. So, while the leaders remain focused on power play, it is the people of Bolivia who continue to suffer.
Firstpost now available in 9 languages on YouTube. English,
Stands at $36 trillion.
French,
Le FMI, comme
German,
Geschäftsführenden Direktor,
Hindi,
$30 trillion ka karjo.
Indonesian,
Pemerintah tanpa pemeriksaan.
Italian,
Sekali radikali.
Japanese,
$4 以上も.
Portuguese,
Por causa do próprio balanço patrimonial.
Spanish.
Beautiful bill.
Go to Settings, click on Audio Track and select a language of your choice. Be the first to know what's happening around you in your first language. Firstpost.